I want to share a thought which I've been having because people have been coming over to me very often the past couple months, and they've been sharing this problem they've been having, which is that they don't love themselves. They don't love themselves. Now, first of all, is it a Jewish value to love yourself? So you have to love your neighbor like you love yourself. You can only love others if you love yourself. But here's what's really fascinating. Why is it so important to love yourself? And how do you do it? Right? How do you love yourself? So I want to share two quick ideas which will fundamentally shift your entire life. And it gets at the core of one concept, which is that you spend 24/7 with you. You eat with you. You are hanging out with friends while you're there. You are walking while you're there. When you daven, you're there. Obviously connecting with Hashem, but you're there. Whatever you do at your job, at school, no matter where you are, you're there. So if you don't love yourself, you're not going to be very happy at all, no matter what. And here's the second important thing, is that you should be the most interesting person in your life because you're with you 24/7. If you don't think that you're interesting, if you don't love spending time with yourself, then first of all, no one else is going to like spending time with you, but you're going to be miserable because you're with yourself 24/7. It's like when you realize that, you start to say, okay, wow, I'm going to be with myself all day, every day for the rest of my life. How do I learn how to love hanging out with myself? How do I love myself? And the way to become fascinating, to become interesting, to love hanging out with yourself, two things. Number one, become mission-driven. Live your life oriented, goal-driven. When you're living with passion and purpose, when you know that you're here for a reason, everything becomes meaningful. You start living in a different wavelength because you're orienting yourself towards, I'm trying to live with purpose. Why am I here? What am I doing here? Life starts to take on new meaning. Number two, which feeds right into number one, feed your mind. You have to eat for physical nutrition. You have to feed your mind for spiritual and existential consciousness nutrition. It's like, what are we doing in this world? People often ask me, like, how do I feed my mind? What does that mean? And I say, well, learn how to think. Learn how to contemplate. I said, what do you mean? Think about what? Contemplate. I'm like, are you listening to shirim? Are you reading books? Are you going to lectures? Are you dealing with questions and ideas and contemplate? Because you become what you think about. And when you feed your mind ideas, you start to love to be alive because there's nothing more enjoyable, more delectable than contemplating Torah, because then you become Torah. It's like, it's one thing to do the intellectual, but then when it becomes who you are and you're always learning and contemplating and thinking, and you start seeing the world differently, you start loving yourself because you become Torah. And that's transformative. There is no such thing as someone who is Torah and doesn't love themselves. You know, a gadol, there's one of my Rebbeim once said that a gadol would love to just be on an island alone all day, every day. He doesn't, deal with people and help people and inspire people for himself, because for himself, he'd be happy just being by himself and contemplating Kadosh Baruch Hu, contemplating Hashem, thinking about the depth of Torah mitzvahs all day, every day. He goes out, and then once you love yourself, you then expand outwards, and then you can contribute, then you can help other people, then you can be, enjoyable for other people. You can be interesting for other people, but it starts with you. You have to become the most interesting person in your life. Set goals for yourself. Start learning and contemplating ideas, questions. What questions haven't you grappled with? What ideas haven't you thought about? What svarim and books and topics interest you? Immerse yourself in it. Become it. And then you start to love yourself because you become so much more than yourself. You're just, living in a world of ideas, thought, contemplation, experience, and growth-oriented, mission-driven, purpose-driven life. And yes, this was a little longer than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be 60 seconds. But at the end of the day, this is literally life-changing. Because I will guarantee you, if you go into a room of 100 people, a majority of those people do not love themselves. And that's because either they are not mission-driven, they don't know why they're living their life, or they are not pursuing this internal contemplation where they become almost like absorbed with thought and ideas and contemplation, and it's a life-changing direction. Once you start, there's no going back. So I implore you, like, now is the time to begin. Write down questions, write down ideas, write down books, write down just things that you're going to start orienting your life towards, and it's going to change your life. And tell me about it. Tell me how it goes. I guarantee you, no matter how much you like yourself now, you're going to love yourself so much more. And that's the first stage of loving Hashem. Because if you do not love yourself, you will not love Hashem. If you hate yourself, there's no way to love Hashem. It's when you realize that Kadosh Baruch Hu is the source of yourself, then if you love yourself, of course you then expand that to loving Hashem. But if you don't love yourself, then you're not going to love Hashem. So you have to start by really expanding your sense of self, by just like expanding your mind, expanding the horizons of your default level of thought, your default level of consciousness. And the Vilna Gaon talks about this in great depth. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I guarantee you, once you start down this direction, there's no going back. It is going to be the best decision you've ever made.